Hey everyone, can you hear me? Hello. Hi everyone, I would just like to welcome you all to our very first webinar on the speaker series. Our feature today is Erin Zaikis. She is the founder of Sundara, and let's all just welcome her and hear her thoughts on leadership. She's an amazing person. I had an opportunity to talk to her this morning, and I'm looking forward to this. Over to you, Erin. Hello.
It says my line is muted when I'm trying to talk, and I'm trying to do this through my phone.
Okay, I can't even find you anymore. 617, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Promote to presenter. Okay.
It's just when I'm trying to talk, there is nothing. I guess you couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, it should be working now.
Okay, so now I should try again.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay. I'm gonna try and I'll call you if something happens. Okay.
Okay, cool. Bye.
In the background. Yeah, boy. People must be Indian because look how they write here, H-E-R-E. I don't hear anything. Did you do that? No, they're chatting in. So, they're spelling what's wrong. Like they're not. This is probably. I don't know who's. This is an Indian name. This is an Indian name. You don't have to if you don't want. I like to hear it a little bit. Why do you have two computers? Two screens. Why? Better. Oh, two screens. You can have two screens out.
Hello? I just changed you to because you're 617-791-0614, right?
That's
Okay.
me. That's me. Hello.
Oh, sorry, I changed someone else to presenter. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. You changed me.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna change it back. Sorry. I can't see you on my attendee list though. That's the thing. Okay, let me hang up. Let me see if I can see you. Okay? Okay, got it. Okay, bye.
long time to do it over here. Really big.
All attendees are muted and may unmute themselves by pressing *6.
Hi, can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
Yes, we can.
yay. Okay, awesome. I'm so glad that you all stayed on the call. Great. So, Yagna, can you give like a brief introduction and then I'll take it from there?
Yeah. Sorry about all the technical difficulties, everyone, but once again, we welcome you all to our very first webinar of the speaker series. Our feature today is Erin Zaikis, and she is the founder of Sundara Fund. And she's going to give us her thoughts on leadership, and I'm looking forward to it. So over to you, Erin.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for taking your time on this really cold Saturday afternoon to spend some time with me talking about leadership. As Yagna said, I am the founder of Sundara. Just a little brief intro that's more than that is I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, actually a really small town called Marblehead. It's right next to Salem where they burned the witches. So that's probably the only reason why you'd have any idea where that is. And when I graduated from high school and I went to the University of Michigan, I spent a few years traveling around Southeast Asia and South Asia working abroad. And then I've made New York City my home for the past now 4 years. So it's just an honor to be able to speak to you all today, and I hope you get something out of my talk. So when I was first asked to do the seminar, I was sort of like, me? Like, what? Leadership? How come? Because I'm not sure if you asked me like 10 words to define myself as, one would be leader. But that said, I do lead a company that has about 26 employees and works in 3 different countries. So I feel like that should count for something, and hopefully I can impart some of my knowledge that I've gained through this entrepreneurship journey to you all today. So I just want to start off with a basic, what is leadership kind of general question. And at least to me, leadership is the ability to rise out of the crowd and take a stand for something, either what you believe is right or what you believe is wrong, and really stand for that. So it could mean so many different things and come in different forms. It could mean, leading a company that sells a product you really value, or starting a protest on campus, or mentoring someone who you think really might need your advice or wisdom. The point is that leadership can come in so many different formats. So it's not necessarily, when you think of a leader, it could be your mom. It doesn't have to be Martin Luther King, or someone in the public eye. It can just take many different formats. And I would also just like to take a moment before I dive into my story to talk about, what is the aspect that all leaders share? And when I boiled down people that I thought were leaders, I think the one thing they all share is that they're fearless and determined, because every leader will face countless hurdles. So your dedication is really going to be tested, and tested often, by your resilience and your ability to not give up. You'll have so many failures in life, but the more failures you go through, the better leader you become. I really believe that. You take a look at the life stories of Gandhi, Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. All of these true visionaries have failed in way more ways than your average person, and their failures have been much greater as well. A lot of them have been on the verge of bankruptcy, had their wife leave them, failed out of school, dropped out of college, but they persevered through the failure and they pivoted. I think pivoting is a really key role. It's taking that knowledge that you learned from failure and adjusting and moving forward. And so I feel like that's the real key to becoming a leader. I just want to segue into a question that some of you have asked, which is, how do you become an outstanding leader? So how do you go from just being a leader to someone that other people really want to follow? And my answer is that I think you can never really lose touch with the people that you represent. So as a leader, you're speaking for more than just you. Your voice is going to someone who usually can't speak for themselves. And so therefore, because you're not just representing you, you have to be constantly open to feedback. You have to be able to admit when you're wrong, when you need to pivot, like I just mentioned, or when something needs adjusting. And in that same vein, it's really important to be introspective and to examine your ego and know when it's your ego talking, or when something is really important and needs adjusting. So that's one thing that I would say really is the difference between a leader and an outstanding leader, is just the ability to not lose touch with the people that you represent. And another issue that I want to address is passion, because I think passion and leadership go hand in hand. So a lot of people will say, how do you balance passion with leadership? And I think they're so intertwined, because true dedication to anything really takes passion. So a good salary or work-life balance or, nice on-the-job perks can only really take you so far in terms of your happiness and dedication. If you talk to people and you see who really loves their jobs, they're motivated by so much more than physical comfort. They're motivated by passion that drives them to work long hours, that drives them to sacrifice, that drives them to compromise. And so I think passion and leadership are hand in hand, and you really can't be a leader unless you find something that you're passionate about. I think passionless leaders as a concept just doesn't really exist. So a little bit about a background into my story. And so how did I realize my passion? I think most people will realize their passion when they get out of their daily routine. So when you get into a really uncomfortable place that tests you on all levels, I think that's really when you find your passion. I don't think you're ever going to find your passion if you're staying in your 9-to-5 life and you're buried in your iPhone, texting people while you walk down the street and not really interacting with other people. I think the best advice I would give to someone who's trying to find their passion is to do something that really scares you. So for me, that was when I was 19, I watched the movie Slumdog Millionaire. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it as well. And and then the next day, I decided, okay, I need to take a trip to India. I need to see that. I was just so blown away by the fact that I was 19. I had gotten through high school. I was a year into college, and I never knew that people could live like that in slums. I never knew that children were fighting to survive halfway across the world. My education was, I knew what a parallelogram was. I knew my times tables. I knew the history of the Puritans and the Pilgrims in New England. But it was so useless when I realized that there's so much struggle going on in this world. So I took the money that I had saved for my bat mitzvah and I bought a one-way ticket to India that summer. And I spent 4 months working in an orphanage in Mumbai. And it, to this day, was like the scariest thing I've ever done. It was very impulsive. I cried every day for the first 3 weeks. I was living with girls who were abandoned. A lot of them were born and left in trash cans or left in police stations or left in train stations, and didn't really have anyone looking out for them or providing for them. So this was the one saving grace that they had. And it was such a challenge to really feel helpless. But it was also in that moment where I realized that I have so much privilege just by living in this country, just by having an education. And that instead of feeling guilty about that and thinking, why do I have this life? And a girl in India might have a very different, arguably worse life. Instead of feeling guilty, I could use my privilege to empower and help others who weren't as fortunate as me. So that's sort of how I realized this should be my passion, helping other girls who weren't born into the same privilege that I was, who didn't have an education, who might have not had supportive parents. I think that was so important for me to see. And it was also my most uncomfortable moment. So I think when you're out there looking for your passion, it's usually the one thing that really scares you, that you feel like you can't do. But those are the times that you really grow the most. So many people have come to me since I started Sundara and said, how do you identify your passion? Like, how do you find it? And other than, taking a trip to India spontaneously, you can just start by brainstorming and asking yourself like a few simple questions, like, what is it that breaks your heart about the world? What's an issue that you spend a lot of time thinking about? If you could fix one problem in the world, what would it be? Is it homelessness? Is it animal rights? Is it refugees in Syria? Like, what is the one issue that you really spend a lot of time thinking about? And once you have that issue, then you think about, why is this so important to me? Does it resonate with something on a personal level? Like, was education hard for you to accomplish and took a lot of sacrifice, so you want to make it easier for someone else? Or did you adopt a dog from a shelter and you want to make sure that other people are doing the same? And sort of address why it's important to you. And then go out there and try and find ways to like activate that passion and come face to face with the issue, because that's really the way that you can see if this is the right path for you or not. For me, my identifying my passion was realizing that I can help someone in a really simple way. So in 2013, about 3 years ago, I'm not so good with math today, I was working in Thailand on the border with Myanmar, and I was working with an organization that helps fight child sex trafficking. And we would go into schools and we would evaluate children based on how likely they were to be trafficked, and we could give them aid and money for school supplies and for medicine and healthcare based off of that. And we would go into the schools, and one thing I always noticed is there was never any soap by the sinks. And these children would go to the bathroom and then run out, not wash their hands. You go to someone's house to eat, and you watch the parents wash the dishes with water. Or you watch someone take a shower and they use talcum powder to absorb the heat instead of using soap in the shower. So I spent a few months in this area and realized there's no soap. I didn't see a single bar of soap for months. And I was using Purell hand sanitizer, but I quickly ran out. So one day I was at the school and I just took a few 11, 12, 13-year-olds aside and I said, "Where is your soap? Don't you wash your hands? What's going on here?" And they said to me, "What's soap?" And I said, the thing you use to wash your hands, the thing your parents use to wash the dishes, what you use in the shower. And they were just dumbfounded, and they had no idea what I was talking about. So I went to the town next door, and it was about a 45-minute drive, so it was a very rural, remote area. And I brought about 130 bars of soap back with me, and I decided I was going to conduct an impromptu hand-washing session. And so I unwrapped the bars of soap, and I gave it to the children, and they had no idea what to do with the soap. And they were, clawing at it with their fingernails, and they were smacking it on their heads. And one kid tried to eat it, which was funny, but it also sort of broke my heart. And I had this moment where I realized these children have lived every single day of their lives without something that I've taken for granted every single day of mine. And how can the world be so unfair? And it was something that was so simple, right? Like a bar of soap. Whoever thinks about that, it's so simple, but it provides so much dignity. And when your hands aren't clean, you don't feel clean. And, every year almost 3 million children are dying because they can't wash their hands and because they're more susceptible to diarrhea and pneumonia and skin disease and eye infections. So I really saw this simple thing that I could do to intervene and help. And since that story, that was sort of my impetus to starting Sundara, and we started soap recycling programs in Myanmar as well as in India and Uganda. So everyone says, what's soap recycling? And when you stay in a hotel and there's bar soap and the next day there's a brand new bar of soap and you're like, wait, I only used that old one once or twice. Where did that old bar of soap go? Well, it went into the trash, but it doesn't have to, because soap is actually one of the easiest materials to recycle. It's easier to recycle than paper, plastic, metal, everything that we're currently recycling now. And so what we do is we train local women in Myanmar, India, and Uganda to collect soap from local hotels, and they bring it to our workshops in each country, and it goes through a chemical sanitization process. We scrape down the outside, chop up the inside, we add some bleach solution to it, form it into a paste, and then pressed it into a new bar of soap. The whole process, start to finish, takes about 7 minutes. And these women are from underserved areas. A lot of them are widows or victims of domestic violence. They're usually the sole provider for their family. So we really believe in hiring people who need it to work. And they also go around and distribute the new bars of soap to schools, to medical clinics. They teach about the benefits of good hand hygiene. And that's essentially what we do, and how this one light bulb moment has transformed my life into starting a nonprofit. So that's a little bit about my journey. But sort of to tie that in with where that could help you is a lot of people, especially your age, are going to be saying, you need to be practical about your job. Oh, are you going to make $100,000 when you graduate from school? Are you going to be able to afford this nice lifestyle? You have to be practical. You might see a lot of your friends are going into office jobs and feel like, oh my goodness, I have to do that too. So the issue of, practicality versus passion when you're considering your career choices after school. So my take on it is that I'm clearly biased. I mean, look at what I do. I'm not a practical person by many measures of the word. I think that material comforts are so important, but I also think it's really important to think about your legacy every day, and the feeling of going to bed feeling like you've grown in some way or you've helped someone somewhere in the world that day. That's a really amazing feeling that no material comfort can ever give you something equal to that. When I first moved to New York 4 years ago, I had a job in real estate and I was making decent money. And it allowed me to live in a nice apartment and go shopping for clothes on the weekends and go out and get drinks with my friends. And it was a very physically comfortable life, but it was not spiritually fulfilling. So I really, towards the end of that year, felt miserable. It was so hard for me to wake up and want to go to work and repeat the same thing day in and day out. I spent most of my time on BuzzFeed reading stupid articles that I would share to my friends. And I had the saying, I lived for the weekends, which is kind of a waste when you think about your weekends only 2/7 of your life. And I just would usually dread Monday mornings when it all had to happen again. And I would look at my friends who were in real estate, who were in banking, and I saw that they were all doing the same thing. So it became very normal to me. And I thought, okay, this is what your life is like after you graduate. But it doesn't have to be that way. I think that's something really important. You don't have to have this job that makes a lot of money where you don't feel fulfilled. You can create your own thing. And no one ever told me that when I was in your shoes. I didn't know anyone who had taken a leap and done something entrepreneurial or started their own company or formed their own nonprofit. But this is your life, and you're allowed to do with it career-wise whatever you want. And that's a really important option. If you decide that you want to live in a nice apartment and have a nice car, then you go out there and do whatever, make the sacrifices that having that nice lifestyle will entail. But there's always another option. So just remember that the choice is yours. Another thing that I do want to mention, though, is not everyone is so lucky. I'm 26, so I don't have children. I'm lucky that I don't have an ailing parent to take care of. I'm still pretty young and healthy. So if I'm going to take a risk in my life, I'm going to take it now. Not everyone is in that same position, and I do realize that. So if you're in a position where you need to take care of someone, where you have to repay some debt, it's okay to do your passion project on the side and have a job that brings in a steady source of income. But I would just urge you, if you have a passion and you want to do something, don't put it off forever just because you feel like I can't do it right now. Still spend some time on the weekends or at nights working on it, and just don't give up, because I think that we can all do this, and we make so many excuses for ourselves, but tomorrow's never promised. So if you can do it now, take the leap. Another thing that I want to cover is, a lot of people have been asking, how would my choices in college really affect my ability to become a leader? And I think that I have to be honest, I don't think that your college major will play a really big role in affecting your ability to become a leader or to start your own thing. I started school as an astronomy major, so I'm very far from where I ever thought I was going to be as a freshman in college. I think what's more important is that you take really interesting classes and things you care about, topics that will later become really amazing conversation starters. But what's most important is the people that you surround yourself with. I think they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So really take an effort to make those 5 people supportive, positive, inspiring, caring people, people that you seek to live like. I think that's the best advice that I can give anyone in college. Also, these people will become your contacts when you get out of college and you're on the job market. So if you spend time investing in really great friends, your life will be that much easier once you graduate and you realize, wow, I have a great network of people that really support me and my dreams. And that's the best kind of investing I think that you can do with yourself in college. I went to school, and as I said, I was an astronomy major, but I soon realized after going to India that there are a lot of problems closer to home that I wanted to focus on. So when I went to school, I started to focus on global poverty. I said that I watched Slumdog Millionaire. I also watched this movie about people who live in trash dumps outside of Rio in Brazil. And I was just so horrified to learn that people were living this way and it wasn't making the news. And I was reading about the Kardashians or whoever was the equivalent at that time. And I didn't realize that people were dying of hunger and a lack of hygiene basics halfway around the world. So that is something that really moved me. And I also felt like my education system was failing me in that regard. So I decided that I needed to educate myself and take my education into my own hands. So when I graduated, I spent the next 2 or 3 years traveling the world and taking paid and unpaid internships to learn about issues like child sex trafficking, genocide, refugees, and asylum seekers. And I really decided that because I felt traditional education was failing me, I was going to educate myself. And I think that ties back into the last lesson that I want to express to you about being a leader. And to be a leader, you'll see that there are so many holes in the world. There are so many places where your needs aren't going to be met. And as a leader, you have to be willing to take that into your own hands and make the need be met. So I just wanted to finish off with some key takeaways that I want to bestow upon you, and then I can take some question and answers if you have any. But the 3 biggest takeaways that I hope you get from this is that absolutely anyone can be a leader, that you just need a passion and the willingness to keep trying after all of the inevitable failures. So those two keys are things that anyone can have. A passion and just the ability to keep going when you fail and when you're feeling really down, and the willingness to just pick yourself up and try again. Another thing is that being a leader, a good leader is being pragmatic. So taking matters into your own hands, and if a need isn't being met at the time. So get out there, and if you see a problem in the world, go try and fix it, because that's what leaders do. And the last thing is, a lot of being a leader is about finding your passion, finding the cause that resonates with you. So spend some time thinking about, like, what issue do you spend the most time thinking about? If money and family and security and societal pressures were no object, what would you spend the rest of your time doing? You've really got to get into this uncomfortable area and test yourself, because your passion might not come to you in your day-to-day routine. So put yourself out there, get uncomfortable, do the thing that you're most scared by, and I'm pretty sure that your passion will be right behind that. About what I've learned about being a leader through these past few years. And with that, I'd love to open it up to some questions and answers.
Thank you so much, Erin, for such wonderful thoughts. I would like to mention to all the people that are calling in via a phone line, if you press *6, that will unmute you. So if you do have any questions and would like to be heard while you're asking that question, please press *6. That will help us all hear you. So does anyone have a question? Okay, Erin, I have a question. So while I'm assuming some of these people are trying to figure out how to unmute themselves. If someone can't figure that out, please, just send a message on the chat and I can try to promote you to a presenter. I don't want to just unmute people because I don't know if they do have questions or not. But my question really is that, you said you saw an opportunity when you went to when you saw that these young girls weren't having any access to soap. How did you, you said that, now there's a workshop in Myanmar, in Uganda, in India. How did you manage to get funding for it? How did you promote that with the local communities? How did you get people excited about it? I guess those are 3 different questions, but.
Yeah. Wait, can you repeat those last 3 questions? Okay, so when I was starting the workshops in Myanmar, Uganda, and India, then your 3 questions, sorry, I faded out, I think, for one.
Yeah, it's okay. So my 3 questions mostly were about how did you get funding to start these workshops? How did you get local communities excited about it? And were there any challenges that you faced in order to make this mission like a part of the community?
Yeah, definitely. So, and then making missions. Okay, so how did I get funding? I initially applied for a grant from LinkedIn. They have a charitable organization called LinkedIn for Good. And I won that. So that gave me about $10,000 to start our first workshop in India. So I think that social entrepreneurship competitions are a great place to start if you're thinking about doing something and you want a little funding for that. From there, I did a bit of crowdfunding. So I set up a page on GoFundMe, and I shamelessly asked for family and friends to donate to cover our costs for the next few months while we built up our other programs. And then from there, I started contacting soap companies, beauty companies, seeing if they were interested in sponsoring us regularly. You'll get a lot of no's, but every now and then you get a yes, which is awesome. And now I'd say we're probably like 60% funded by corporations, 40% individual donors. Funding and fundraising is a really big challenge, and I think that a lot of people, myself included, have weird issues around money and asking for money and power dynamics. So that was a real challenge for me, and it still is today. But I read a lot of books about fundraising, signed up for some websites and webinars, and I tried to get a little better with each month that went by. Your next question was about getting local communities excited about it. Yeah, it's really hard to at first, because here I was, this like white girl with red hair coming into India being like, you guys should recycle soap. And they'd never heard about soap recycling before. And they also were really scared and shy and not interested in taking the leap. Soap recycling is a very new concept. It's only been around for about 5 years. So here I was with this new idea, and I was really excited about it, but it seemed like no one else was. So I had to get in there and do presentations at community centers with the machine, showing them how soap is recycled, showing them that I use the soap in the shower myself, that it was good enough for me, so it should be good enough for them. And also going through some failures. At first we started to distribute soap to some schools, and we were finding that no one was using the soap. And so I tried to figure out, why is no one using this? And it turns out that in many parts of India, opening soap is like an experience. People love to see the face on the wrapper, and they love to crinkle the paper. And so much of using soap is about opening the soap. And we weren't putting any packaging on the soap bars because we just wanted to cut costs and help the environment. Mm-hmm. So we had to measure that and take that into consideration. So now we put a simple paper wrapping on our soap and a stamp that says Sundara and Sundara in Hindi. And that has made the world of a difference. And people get really excited. They recognize our packaging now, and they want to open the Sundara soap. And we've also added some colors to it because people really like different colors of soap. In Myanmar, we use lemongrass, and because those are scents that are very recognizable to them. So we try and cater our soap according to what people like, and that takes a few months to figure out. So that's one challenge that we really faced in getting local communities excited about it. But now, thankfully, we're at this point where people are approaching us all the time for soap, and we actually have to turn them away. So it was a quick turnaround. And then your last question was about making the mission stick, or what did you say about mission?
Yeah, so I think you kind of covered it in answering the last two questions, but my third question was mainly about the challenges that you faced while you were trying to progress the mission of, providing soap to all of these underprivileged communities.
I mean, there are so many challenges, and there's so many things that you could never, ever dream of when you think this is coming through. I mean, the first person that I hired, I got sick with typhoid, and I had to come back to the U.S., and I asked her to just keep the program afloat, and I found out that she was stealing money from us, and she used the company car to drive to the hair salon, and she bought a bottle of champagne with our money, and did a lot of things to really tell me that she was not a good employee. And to fire someone from abroad is very difficult, especially while you're sick and in the hospital. So we went through a huge amount of challenges trying to find someone who was trustworthy, who wasn't going to misappropriate funds like that, who really believed in the work that we do. And it took about a year to find someone really good, and we went through a lot of duds. You have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find the prince, right? That's the saying. Mm-hmm. So we've gone through a lot of challenges, and I think the number one challenge is human capital, is finding someone who believes in your mission almost as much as you do, because there will never be someone who, when you're doing your own thing, there will never be someone who matches how much you care about it. But finding someone who cares about it almost as much, and someone you can trust, it's a really big challenge for us.
Okay, and then I have one more question, mostly, directed on behalf of our two ambassadors that are online today, Kiran Veer and Shanu George. They're both high school students, and for someone like them, if they would want to get involved, with something like this, do you have local opportunities for young women to help out with the mission, or and also kind of experience being in a nonprofit setting, but still taking on leadership roles?
Yes, definitely. We do have an internship program. Each quarter we take on between 2 or 3 interns. So we're actually having a new round coming up in the beginning of March. So if someone is interested in applying, I definitely encourage them to. And because I've had so many, frankly, crappy internship experiences myself, I really take a lot of time to make sure that interns are getting something really useful out of working with us, whether they want to sharpen their fundraising and development skills or perfect social media or talk to donors or work on CSR strategies. We really try and craft it to whatever they are most interested in. So yes, we do have a program if people want to get involved domestically, and also every now and then we're looking for someone to travel to one of our sites, especially India. So if someone is interested in doing something abroad, we have the opportunity as well.
Okay, that's great. That's does anyone else have any questions? If you think of any, later, you can obviously email Erin. Her information is on the slides right now. But yeah, does anyone else have any questions?
Anyone hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Oh, can you guys hear me? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is this?
Okay. I have a question. Hi, my name is Shainu. I was wondering, I missed the beginning of the meeting due to technical difficulties, but I was wondering how your family and friends reacted to your decision to start this foundation. Were they supportive? Were they kind of iffy on it? How did they feel?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I think my family and friends were a little bit shocked, and they thought it was just a passing phase. And they, I think my parents always wanted me to go to medical school or become a lawyer, probably similar to a lot of other parents. And so I think that they thought, oh, this is just her hobby, and she'll want to go back to med school soon enough. But that didn't happen for me. And it was really hard because I didn't have friends at the time who were really pursuing passion projects the way I wanted to. So I had to do kind of a friend cleanse, I would say, and focus on quality over quantity and find people that were doing things that I thought were really cool and spend time around them and try and pick up some of their traits so that I could feel that someone else understood what I was going through. So I think the social aspect was really hard for me because I didn't have a lot of people that believed in me at first, and a lot of people thought that, this is a joke, she'll get over it soon enough. So I think that's why I stressed spending time with the 5 people that really inspire you and push you and are positive and supportive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
So does anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you again, Erin, for such a great presentation. I'm not.
My pleasure.
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know what that noise was, but yeah, I just want to say that I learned a great deal, and I'm already a professional working. So thank you so much for such wonderful thoughts. Definitely a lot of things to think about, especially what you said about the passion versus practicality. I think we all struggle with that very daily. Do we do what's practical for us, or do we do what we're passionate about? So once again, thank you so much for these thoughts. I cannot stress enough to everyone who's on here, if you do have any questions, please approach Erin. She's wonderful and so approachable. So her Twitter handle and her email are both on the slide in front of you. You can also reach out to speak if you have any questions and can't get in touch with Erin. We would be happy to connect you all to her. And just before we sign off here, I would like to mention that our next webinar is scheduled for February 28th. And the speaker for that one is going to be Ting Pen. She is a co-founder of the personal finance website Value Penguin. She graduated from Georgetown University with a background in accounting and finance. And before she started her own company, she was a financial analyst at the Citigroup. She will be talking about financial management, which is something that is very important in this day and age. You know, where we keep hearing about economy every day. And, you know, as women, we're becoming more independent, we're making a lot more money, and we should be aware of how to manage our own finances. So Ting Pen will be talking about that, giving her thoughts on it. So please join us on February 28th, 2016. We still have to confirm with her, but as soon as we figure that out, we will be posting on social media. We'll share the link with all of you. So thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Hi. Hi. Normal chat.